I'm on a decent number of forums and things out there about LLMs, and like the number one request people have is just make it so that I can give it more stuff and get better answers out. And I think what that kind of misses is the idea that AI is really interactive. Like what does interactive mean? It means that I'm going to say something and then it's going to say something and I'm going to say something back and it's going to remember what I said first, right? So memory is kind of fundamental. We sort of use it every day, but we miss it, right? Like if you think about, when the Greeks had their oracles, right? And you would go to the oracle and you would say, "Oh, great oracle, tell me the future," and it would say something really obscure and weird to you. This is very much a one-way thing, right? It turns out to be true, but you have no idea why, and it's not true for the reasons that you thought it would be, right? So AI without memory is kind of like that. It's like you can go to it and say, what should I do about this problem, and it'll give you an answer. But then if you say something about that answer, well, it's going to start all over again, right? It's like 42 in the Hitchhiker's Guide. So this idea of stateful intelligence, I hate it because it's such a an engineering way of saying it, right? It really just means that the model has to remember the conversation to refine its work to give you something more useful at the end. And we as people operate with all sorts of memory, right? We have episodic memories. We remember songs differently than we remember math, right? And AI is very much the same way, right? There's long-term memory that it learned at the factory. There's long-term memory that I told it I wanted to always remember. There's things that I just said in the current conversation, and then there's things that my administrator wants it to always know about me that I never even said, right? So all these different forms of memory are necessary to really enrich the experience to make the model useful.
I've been thinking about, Andre Karpathy talks about it has interrograde amnesia sort of thing. And have you ever seen the movie Memento? Has anybody seen that
Yeah.
movie? Yeah. But to me, that feels like, oh, if you want to know how LLMs work, just go watch the movie Memento. And you have to like sort of leave notes and all these sorts of context sort of around it. Does that make sense to you guys? Is that a reasonable analogy?
Yeah, it totally does, right? In fact, if you think about the process where you're polishing up a prompt, as you're going from sort of I had an idea and I wrote a prompt to okay, I'm going to go live now and it better serve 10,000 people. It is a lot like that towards the very end. You're just making small adjustments, reminding it of subtle things, making sure not to tell it, hey, this one's important after you just said something else is important if those two contradict each other, right? But putting those in the right sequence, and then of course being able to have an eval that tests the whole thing to make sure that as presented, it's going to do the job that you want it to do.
Balance though, Mike. There's you got to have context, right, in memory of like what's going on. But then you also don't want to be jamming, a million tokens into it every time. Like, how do you?
Yeah, it'll be expensive and slow.
Yeah, how do you
Absolutely, right?
balance?
It's yeah. Well, I think memory is key there, right? So, in other words, you you
Mm.
you start by giving it not the million tokens, but you start by giving it what you think is right, and then seeing the mistakes it makes, and then patching that up, if you will, with modifications to that, so that like I did an experiment once. It was really interesting. There was a large project, a research project to identify motion in video, right? So is somebody walking or are they running? Are they going in the outdoor? Are they going up the down escalator? Right, this sort of a security system, and being able to detect this motion was not an easy job for an LLM. Think about it; it's a series of pictures, and it's got to cross-reference pictures one after the other to figure out whether something is happening or not, right? In that world, and so that's a scenario where if you just try to dump all that information in, you're going to fail. On the other hand, if what you let it do is you show it one and say, make some interesting observations about this, and then show it another, remembering the first one, right? Then it's got a chance of building up a series of episodes that ultimately help it conclude, as opposed to dumping it all in at the beginning.